My name is Balba, and this is the story of how my life changed in a place I never expected, a hospital in Zimbabwe. It is a story I sometimes still struggle to believe, even though every part of it lives inside my heart. It was a hot afternoon in Harare when I received a message that my father had been admitted to the hospital. He had been feeling weak for some weeks, but he refused to go for checkups until the pain became too much. I rushed to the hospital with my mind full of fear. My father was the strongest man I knew, and I could not imagine him lying helpless in a hospital bed. When I arrived, the corridors smelled of medicine and disinfectant. Nurses walked quickly past me, and families sat quietly on benches. I walked to Ward 6 and found my father resting. His face looked pale, but he smiled the moment he saw me. I stayed with him for hours, holding his hand, talking softly, trying to make him forget the pain. What I did not know was that at the same time, in the same hospital, someone else was walking through the same corridors, someone who would change everything for me. The next day, as I walked out of my father's ward to get some water, I accidentally bumped into a tall man. I apologized quickly, but when I looked up, my eyes met his. He had warm brown eyes, the kind that make you feel safe immediately. "I'm sorry," I said again. He smiled gently. "It's all right. These hospital corridors are too small for the number of people moving around." I laughed a little because it was true. He introduced himself. "My name is Tawanda, I'm Balba," I said. He told me he was visiting his uncle who had been very ill for a long time. There was sadness in his voice, the same kind of sadness I carried for my father. For a moment we stood there, two strangers connected by fear, love, and pain. Then a nurse called him, and he rushed off, leaving me standing in the hallway with a strange warmth in my chest. Meeting again and again. The next few days were difficult. My father's condition was changing every hour, and I felt exhausted. But every time I walked to the cafeteria or to the vending machine, I met Tawanda. Sometimes it was by accident, sometimes it felt like the universe was pushing us together. We talked about life, about our families, about Zimbabwe, our beautiful but complicated home. He told me he worked in Gweru but had come to Harare when he heard about his uncle's condition. Talking to him felt easy, natural. I felt understood, seen, listened to. It was something I had not felt for a long time, and yet, deep inside me, there was a whisper reminding me that I was married for 7 years. My husband was a good man, but somewhere along the way, life had turned into routine. We had become quiet with each other, distant without fighting, strangers without trying. But I never planned to fall for someone else. I never even thought it could happen. Still, the heart does not ask for permission. The day everything changed, one evening, after a long and tiring day, I found Tawanda sitting on the bench outside the hospital. He looked worried. His uncle's condition had gotten worse. I sat beside him without thinking. We talked for hours. The moon had risen above the hospital building, shining softly on us. He told me stories from his childhood, funny things that made me laugh even though my heart was heavy. I told him about my father, about my fears, my memories, and the things I rarely shared with anyone. There was a moment when the noise of the hospital faded away. Just me. Just him. Silence, but not an empty one. A warm silence, full of something I did not want to name. When I stood up to leave, he touched my hand gently. His touch was soft but powerful, and my heart trembled. "Balba," he said, "I don't know what is happening, but I feel something. And I can't pretend I don't." I could not look at him. I knew the truth. I felt the same. "I am married," I whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But feelings don't follow rules." Tears filled my eyes, not because of guilt, but because it felt like the truth I had been hiding from myself. Love that shouldn't have happened but did. Over the next weeks, we grew closer. We never crossed any line physically, but emotionally we were already deeply connected. He was the person I searched for when I felt scared. He was the person who made me smile even when I wanted to cry. He reminded me what it felt like to be alive every day. As I checked on my father, my heart also checked on him, and still, my mind fought with my heart. I was a wife. I had made vows. But for the first time in years, someone looked at me like I mattered, like I was more than responsibilities, more than expectations. Tawanda did not offer me perfection. He offered honesty, a presence, an emotion. The hardest day ***. Eventually, his uncle passed away, and I knew he would return to Gweru soon. My father was slowly getting better, and I was grateful. But losing Tawanda's presence felt like losing a piece of myself. On his last day at the hospital, we walked quietly around the garden. He held my hand for the first and only time. It felt wrong, but it also felt like the truest thing I had touched in years. "I will never forget you, Balba," he said. "I will never forget you," I whispered back. We did not kiss. We did not make promises. We let our hearts speak for a moment, and then life pulled us apart. After everything, I returned home to my husband, trying to rebuild what we had lost. I focused on caring for my father, who was slowly recovering. I never told anyone about Tawanda. It was my quiet story, my beautiful and painful secret. Sometimes love appears in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes it does not stay forever. Sometimes it teaches you what your heart is still capable of feeling. And even though I remain married and life returned to what it was, a part of my heart still remembers the man with warm brown eyes in a hospital hallway in Zimbabwe. Because love, real, unexpected love, does not always end with two people together. Sometimes it ends with a changed heart, a remembered touch, and a story that stays with you forever. Months later, a life that looked normal, but a heart that was not. After the days in the hospital, life slowly returned to normal. Or at least, it looked normal from the outside. My father was finally recovering, and every morning I cooked for him, checked his blood pressure, and made sure he took his medicine. My husband went to work as usual, quiet as always, busy as always. We cooked dinner together sometimes, but even then, our conversations were short, light, almost polite. We lived together, but it felt like we were living in two different rooms. Inside our hearts and inside mine, there was a memory that refused to fade. A man with warm brown eyes, a soft voice, and hands that held mine on a quiet night outside a hospital in Zimbabwe. I tried to forget, I really did, but real feelings do not disappear simply because you want them to. A message I was not expecting came one morning. 3 months after he returned to Gweru, I was cleaning my father's room when my phone buzzed. Was a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. "Hi, Balba. It's Tawanda. I hope this message is not too unexpected." My heart jumped so hard I thought it would break through my chest. I stood there, frozen, staring at the screen. I had imagined hearing from him, but I never thought it would happen. My fingers shook as I typed back, "Tawanda, it's really you." He replied almost immediately, "Yes. I couldn't stop wondering how you were. I hope your father is better." I sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly breathless. We began texting, slowly at first, then more and more. Every message felt like a secret flame burning softly inside me. The call that changed everything. One evening, at around 9 p.m., he called me for the first time. His voice was the same, warm, deep, careful, like he was trying not to disturb my soul. "Balba," he said, "I've missed talking to you more than I expected." I closed my eyes because hearing his voice again felt like coming home. We talked for 2 hours about life, about fear, about dreams, about how lonely we both were even when surrounded by family. It was the kind of conversation that opens the heart like a flower. And that night, when I ended the call, I knew one thing clearly: my story with him was not over. The day we met again, he came to Harare 2 weeks later. On a Friday. He said he needed to check something for work, but I knew he also wanted to see me. We planned to meet at a small cafe near the city center. I arrived early, nervous like a teenager going on her first date. When he walked in, my breath caught. He looked the same, but somehow different, stronger, calmer, handsomer. When our eyes met, something inside me melted. He walked toward me slowly, a soft smile on his lips, his eyes shining. "Balba," he said, and for a moment, the whole world just paused. We talked for hours at that cafe. We laughed. We stared at each other like two people who had waited too long for this moment, but the world around us was loud, and our hearts needed quiet. So we walked to a small park nearby, where old trees stood like silent storytellers. We sat on a bench under the branches. The air felt heavy with everything we were not saying. I remember this moment more clearly than anything else in my life. I was talking, but my voice was shaking. He was listening, but his eyes were full of emotions I could not name. Finally, he reached out and touched my hand, just like he did months before, but this time he didn't let go. Balba, he said softly, I've tried to stay away. I've tried to forget. But I can't. I looked at him, then I felt my soul lean toward him. Slowly, carefully, he touched my cheek with his fingertips. My heart beat so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Tell me to stop, he whispered, but I didn't. I couldn't. I didn't want to. And then his lips touched mine, soft, slow, gentle, respectful, full of emotion, full of things he never said and things I never asked for. In that moment, the world disappeared. There was no husband. No responsibilities. No rules, just two hearts finally speaking the same language. When the kiss ended, I leaned my forehead against his and closed my eyes. I wasn't supposed to love him, but I did, deeply, helplessly, honestly, bringing him gifts. After that day, something new began between us, something delicate, something dangerous, something beautiful. Whenever he came to Harare, I brought him small gifts. Not expensive things, just things that meant something. I brought him a warm scarf because he always felt cold, a book of poems because he loved reading, his favorite chocolate because he once mentioned he missed it from childhood, a bracelet made of wooden beads from Bear Market, a small notebook because he said he wanted to write down his thoughts. He always smiled softly when I handed him something. You don't have to bring me anything, he would say, but I did it because it made me happy, because giving him something felt like giving peace to my own heart. And he kept every gift carefully, like pieces of a secret treasure. Growing closer, we grew closer with every meeting. He told me things he had never told anyone, his fears, his regrets, his dreams, and I told him the truth about my marriage, the silence, the distance, the way I felt invisible. He listened, never judging, never pushing, and every time he held my hand, I felt warm, safe, then seen. Sometimes we sat together in his car, listening to soft music, not talking. Sometimes we walked under the sunset in quiet streets, sometimes we just held each other, breathing the same air, sharing the same unspoken feeling. It was wrong. It was beautiful. It was ours. Weeks passed, then months. What started as small conversations and shy meetings turned into something deeper, something that felt bigger than both of us. Tawanda and I spoke every night. We met every weekend. We shared secrets, dreams, fears, everything. He made me feel alive again, seen, loved, wanted, and I gave him the same because our hearts beat for each other, even in a world where we were not supposed to fall in love. At home, I tried to live normally with my husband. I cooked, I cleaned. I talked. I smiled, but inside me there was emptiness in one place and fire in another. Planning his birthday. Tawanda's birthday was coming in July. One evening, he told me on the phone, laughing softly, I don't need anything big, just your presence. But I wanted to give him something he would never forget, something that showed how important he was to me, something that showed how deeply I felt. He always struggled with transport between Gweru and Harare. Sometimes he borrowed cars, sometimes he took buses. Sometimes he waited for people to give him rides. So I made a decision that surprised even me. I decided to buy him a car, the car gift from my heart. I spent weeks searching quietly. I went to different sellers. I checked online. I asked people I trusted. I knew I didn't want something extremely luxurious, just a clean, safe, reliable car. A car that would make his life easier. A car that would remind him of me every time he touched the steering wheel. Finally, I found a silver Toyota Allion, simple, strong, beautiful, perfect for him. I paid for it with money I had been saving for years, money I had planned to use for home renovations. But sometimes the heart chooses different plans. His birthday night, on the evening of his birthday, I told my husband, I'm visiting the friend I met at the hospital. She has some problems and wants someone to talk to. He believed me easily. I had used that lie before, many times. I dressed nicely, my heart beating fast, and drove to a quiet place near his apartment. When he stepped outside and saw the car parked there, he smiled, thinking it was mine, but when I handed him the key, his smile froze. "What is this, Balba?" he whispered. "It's yours," I said softly. He blinked hard, shocked, confused, emotional. "Mine? A car? You bought this for me?" I nodded. He stepped closer, gently held my face, and whispered, "No one has ever loved me this deeply." He hugged me, long and tight, his heartbeat strong against my chest. He kissed my forehead first, then my cheek, then my lips, slow, full of gratitude, full of emotion. It was the most honest kiss we ever shared. The first night together. That night, for the first time, I didn't return home. I told my husband I was sleeping at my friend's house. He simply said, "Okay," not suspecting anything. But I went with Tawanda. We spent the whole night talking, laughing, holding hands. We watched a movie. We ate the cake I brought him. We walked outside under the moonlight, and when we finally sat down together on his couch, he wrapped his arms around me gently. No words, just quiet breathing, warmth, safety, love. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat until I fell asleep. It was peaceful, wrong in the eyes of the world, maybe, but peaceful in the heart. After that night, it became a routine. Every 2 weeks, I lied, "I'm visiting my friend from the hospital." And every time I went to Tawanda. We spent nights together talking, sharing food, dreaming, laughing, holding each other. It felt like we were building a secret world, beautiful, soft, full of love. A world only for us, but secrets never sleep forever. My husband began to notice the small changes: the new perfume I wore, the smile I tried to hide, the nights I didn't come home, the happiness in my eyes that didn't come from him, the way my phone vibrated and I rushed to hide it. At first, he stayed quiet, watching, observing, collecting pieces like a puzzle. One Friday night, I told him again, "I'm going to sleep at my friend's house. She needs me." He forced a smile, but his eyes were suspicious. This time he didn't believe me, and this time, he followed me. The night everything was discovered, I drove normally, thinking everything was safe. My husband followed in another car, far behind me, making sure I didn't notice. I reached Tawanda's place with excitement in my heart, not knowing disaster was following me. Tawanda opened the door with a big smile. He hugged me the moment I entered. Inside the house, the lights were warm, the food was ready. Music was playing softly, but outside, my husband was watching. He saw me in Tawanda's arms. He saw the gift bags I brought. He saw him kiss my cheek. He saw everything. My husband sat in his car, silent, shaking with pain, anger, heartbreak. He didn't come inside, not yet. He waited. He wanted to be sure. He wanted to see more. And when he saw Tawanda take my hand and lead me to the couch, laughing like lovers, that was the moment the truth hit him like lightning. His wife was in another man's arms. Another man's home, living another life. He finally opened the door of his car and stepped out. The night air was quiet until the knock came. It was not a soft knock, it was not a polite one. It was a knock that carried pain, suspicion, and truth all at once. Tawanda and I froze. He looked at me with confusion. I looked back at him with fear. Another knock, this time louder. My heart stopped. Tawanda whispered, "Who could that be at this hour?" But deep inside I already knew. I could feel it in my chest like a stone dropping into water. My husband, Tawanda, walked toward the door, unsuspecting. "Come," but I rushed and grabbed his arm. "Tawanda, wait." He looked at me, eyebrows raised. "What's wrong?" I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. "It might be my husband." Silence swallowed the room. His eyes widened. He didn't breathe for a moment, then he closed his eyes as if trying to gather strength. But before he could say anything, the door handle shook, and then it opened face to face. The clash of hearts. My husband stepped inside slowly, almost painfully. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't violent. He wasn't even angry in an obvious way. He looked broken. His eyes went from the couch, to the cake on the table, to the gift bag with Tawanda's name, to me standing close to Tawanda, too close. Then he whispered my name, "Balba." Why? One word, small, quiet, but it cut the whole room open. I felt tears rising instantly, guilt mixing with shock. Tawanda stepped forward calmly, trying to remain respectful. "Sir, please," but my husband lifted his hand gently, stopping him. "Don't." I already saw everything. His voice cracked on the last word. I felt my legs weaken. Tawanda didn't force me, I said softly, I came here because I wanted to. My husband stared at me, as if trying to understand a language he never learned. You lied to me, for months. His voice broke again. Every time you said you were helping your friend, you were here. I nodded slowly. Tawanda looked at me, not with panic, not with fear, but with a strange softness, as if saying, I'm here. I'm not leaving you alone. The moment I had to choose, my husband stepped closer and looked me straight in the eyes. Tell me the truth, he whispered. Do you love him? The room fell silent. My heart thundered. My throat tightened. I could feel Tawanda behind me. I could feel my husband in front of me. Two different worlds. Two different lives. Two different futures. I love you, my husband said quietly. We've built a life together. I don't want to lose you. We can fix this. Just come home with me. His voice was pleading, shaking. I closed my eyes and Tawanda took one step toward me, not touching me, just close enough for me to feel his presence. He spoke softly, with a voice full of emotion. I'm not asking her to choose me, but I won't lie. He swallowed hard. I love her too. My husband turned sharply toward him. And what do you have, young man, that I don't? Tawanda didn't answer immediately. He looked at me instead. I make her feel alive, he said quietly. I make her smile. I listen to her. I know her heart. And she knows mine. My husband stared at me again. Is that true? Tears finally escaped my eyes. I whispered the most painful truth. Yes. He stepped back as if I had physically pushed him. The choice that broke the night. He wiped his face, trying to hide the tears, trying to stand strong, trying not to collapse. Balba, he breathed. Do you want to stay here tonight? With him? The world stopped spinning. I looked at him, the man I had shared a home with, a life, a history. Then I looked back at Tawanda, the man who had awakened my heart, my joy, my softness. My voice trembled, but it came out clear. I want to stay with Tawanda. My husband closed his eyes, as if those words stabbed him. He nodded slowly, holding back a sob. I won't beg you, he whispered. I just hope one day, you'll understand how much I loved you. He turned toward the door, stopped, looked back one last time, then he walked out. When the door closed, the sound echoed through the room like thunder falling into the arms of my choice. The moment he was gone, my knees gave out. I sank to the floor, shaking, crying. Tawanda rushed to me, holding me gently. Hey, you're not alone, he whispered into my hair. I'm here. I'm right here. I buried my face in his chest, crying for the pain I caused, the marriage I broke, the truth I finally faced, and the love I couldn't deny. Then Tawanda held me tighter, not triumphantly, not proudly, but tenderly. Softly. As a man who knew that love sometimes comes with wounds, and he was willing to hold me through all of them.